Well, I'm going to talk to you today about Remembrance Day, or for I believe my beloved American friends call it Veterans Day, but it's the same holiday for the same reason. And sadly, I believe we forgot the lesson of Remembrance Day. We forgot what we were supposed to remember this day. And I believe we have forgotten a lot of what Remembrance Day is all about, and we've forgotten a lot of what we're supposed to remember. The first thing we forgot about Remembrance Day is our enemies. Who our enemies were. What exactly is a Nazi anyways? World War II was the most significant war. Who were the Nazis? Hey, here's my dictionary. It's a Canadian dictionary. But I'm going to go through Nazi. This is Nazi. People talk about Nazis all the time and compare the Nazis. It's good to understand what Nazis really were before you open a conversation about them. Nazi, a supporter of the National Socialist German Workers' Party that controlled Germany from 1933 to 1945 under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. Compare fascists, but National Socialist German Workers' Party. Come on, socialist. Neither party, and it's sadly coming to be reality that already the left-wing parties in Canada and the US, like the Liberals, NDP, and Democrats, there's some of them, not all of them granted, but some of them are already endorsing socialism. That is not good. I've got to put a side note to this to try not to politicize it too much, because both the Democratic President Franklin D. Roosevelt was in power during World War II, and Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King was a Liberal in power at the time, and the very parties that were fighting against these despots are starting to embrace the very same ideologies, and it's getting scary. And the young people want socialism and stuff. People died to defeat this ideology. It is not what you think it is. It's not good, period. Now our kids are thinking that socialism is okay. And it's not. Whenever you give the government power, you give the government power to abuse. In many cases, the socialism side, the socialists have, in almost all the cases of socialism, the government has overstepped their boundaries and taken it right over. It hasn't produced a lot of wealth either. The more control you give over the government, the more likely it gets in the wrong hands and the power is abused. And that's what happened to Nazi Germany. And they aren't the only ones. They're the most extreme case because they took it internationally and wanted to invade the world. But other places like Venezuela, well, USSR is Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, so they taken a step further, and those people were badly oppressed. But Venezuela, look at that. The world's richest oil reserves, and they're a poor country. That should not be. That should not be at all, and that's just strictly because socialism does not work. And people taking their a lot of people have given up their lives to defeat this horrible ideology. If we embrace that crap, we are absolute morons, and we certainly have forgotten what our veterans have accomplished. Second thing I believe we forgot about is the cost of freedom. We don't value our freedom very much anymore. We don't value our freedom at all. We take it so much for granted that we're actually willing to lose it. And we don't know how precious it is. Like, these people did, our veterans did, and a lot of them paid the ultimate price or lost their quality of life afterwards. Freedom is very important. And quite honestly, if you don't value your freedom more than you value your own life, you're not worthy of that freedom. Now, how do I know that people have forgot about their freedom? Well, part of it is the COVID-19. They let the government just take right over because they're in fear. And check out what Benjamin Franklin had to say on the subject. He who would trade liberty for some temporary security deserves neither liberty nor security. You know what? I'm sorry to say this, but Canadians and Americans and all the free world really doesn't deserve their freedoms anymore. They aren't worthy of what our government has done. Like, during COVID-19, the coercion for that was unbelievable, and the masks and all other things, like kicking people off the airplanes because their 2-year-olds won't wear a mask and stuff like that. That was wrong. And if you don't value your freedom more than your life, I'm sorry, you don't really deserve, you're not worthy of freedom if you don't. Let that sink into you. Our soldiers valued their freedoms more than their lives, and it cost them some of their lives. But at the end of the day, life was a lot better for us than it would have been if we had lost the wars. No, our freedom's very important. Like, there again, they lied about the and people were just taking it. People were just taking it. They are hapless sheeple, and these soldiers, we aren't. If we're gonna be just sheeple, we really aren't worthy of their sacrifice. We really aren't. We have to value our freedom more than that. They paid, the least they can do to honor our veterans is to maintain the freedom they have obtained for us. That's really not that much to ask. You see how some of our leaders are treating the veterans. They aren't treating them very well. Like, Trudeau gave a convicted terrorist $10.4 million, and yet he told their veterans that are injured who aren't even surviving, who don't have enough to survive, that they are asking too much. And the same thing is happening in the U.S. So they're supporting the people who sneak across the border and illegally immigrate. They treat them better than the people who fought for this country. That's utterly disgraceful. Their veterans deserve better than this. They didn't fight for freebies, they fought for freedom. And our freedom is getting attacked in many ways now. One of the freedoms we fought for was the right to free speech. And if we're willing to give up our right to free speech, we aren't deserving of any freedoms at all. And current governments have passed bills again that could put people in jail for saying stuff against homosexuality and stuff like that. That is beyond wrong. This has got to stop. We are losing our country big time. We're losing what our veterans died for big time. Their biggest enemy right now is not Russia. It's not China. It's left wing. It's the left. They're the ones who are trying to turn our country into socialism. They're the ones who are trying to take away our freedom of speech. They're the ones, and I'm not saying that I blame the right just as much. Like, we had conservative leader here who put in some terrible rules during COVID. In fact, throughout Canada they did. There's some U.S. governors that had some sense, and their COVID wasn't any worse than anyone else. Like Kristi Noem, South Dakota COVID wasn't any worse than anyone that had tight COVID restrictions. Here in Alberta, at least the people that had a sense, they had Jason Kenney's career. The UCP members ended his career because of what he did. Good. He deserves to lose his career forevermore for what he did. Because these COVID restrictions were wrong. It's all about the ch-ch. And they coerced everyone to take the ch-ch. And their rationale was you're putting people at risk if you don't have the ch-ch. Well, I'll tell you the truth. If you're at risk after having the ch-ch from someone else who hasn't, ain't working for you, period. And that level of coercion and stuff was what we seen in the COVID era was a real dangerous, was very dangerous. And we should never allow something like that to happen in this country again. None of our people really worthy of the freedoms our veterans fought for. They really aren't. Not many. It's not just the government, it's the people. People need to stand up against some of these ungodly rules, and governments themselves should not even consider them. Like Bill C-4, which is prohibits conversion therapy among gays. If they don't want to be the way they are, they want help to get back to being a normal person. Well, then they can't get, because you're not allowed to give it to them. Well, that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And the conservatives support it as much as the liberals did. I'm not totally down on liberals. They're the worst offenders, but still, the conservatives haven't done us any favors either sometimes. Another thing, forgotten the price of war given the way we treat our veterans. Like, our veterans are not treated as they should be. I don't believe that. The government finds money to give to sex changes to inmates or for anybody really. They find taxpayer money for that, but they don't. Our veterans are homeless. Some of them. Our priorities are so screwed up. Our veterans deserve better. And here are these people who are abusing the age system and the welfare system and all that stuff. That's okay, but heaven forbid the veterans should get a little extra. If anyone deserves extra, it's them. It's the ones who have fought for this country. If they got themselves injured fighting for this country, they should be treated the best. They should have everything provided for them. If they can't provide themselves, they are worthy of the most benevolence of anybody. And yet, they're kind of blowing off in this society right now. That is so wrong. Well, God bless you all. We please honor your veterans this Veterans Day or Remembrance Day. Remember them, and remember the price of freedom. Remember that we have a country that is worth fighting for. And we gotta keep it that way. It's our responsibility. Our number one responsibility of all is to maintain their country, our freedom in their country. And for veterans' sake, we better do that. We better be very choosy of which legislation we allow the government to pass. Anything that restricts the freedoms they fought for, I'm not for. Well, God bless you all. Catch you up next one. Please like and